Mr. Mike, welcome back to KEEL. Great talking to you, sir. Thanks for your time as always.
Hey, Robert, absolutely.
So what's in your head this morning? What are you thinking? Your first impression of, because everybody kind of knew this Russian invasion of Ukraine was coming. What are your thoughts, your initial thoughts?
Well, we've known it for months, right? I'm on the House Armed Services Committee. We've been receiving classified briefings on this since, I think, late November. We've been begging the White House to show strength, to act decisively, because Putin is a bully, just like Xi and China and all these terrorists and tyrants and dictators around the world. The only thing that holds them at bay, Robert, is the perception of American strength. We've maintained the peace through strength, as we know. So the president did not do that. He did not act decisively, and so here we are. You know, instead of showing strength, he blocked American energy production, which is a big factor in this. He green-lighted Russia's Nord Stream 2 pipeline. He dragged his feet on sanctions. He even lobbied against, the White House lobbied against congressional efforts to hold Russia accountable. So, you know, the president is set to announce a new package of sanctions today, but we just wish this had happened many weeks ago.
Are any kinds of sanctions, even today's new ones that the Biden administration, that the president may impose, to you, is it just an empty sack? Is it just a Potemkin village of sanctions?
Well, here's the problem now. I mean, the invasion has begun, right? Russia's at war with Ukraine. And so the president, we're told, is going to aim the sanctions today at Russian banks and technology firms and maybe even some export controls. But if you talk to, the retired generals, people at the Pentagon, Joint Chiefs of Staff, they will tell you quietly that sanctions take a long time to have a real effect. And Putin has a big reserve right now, that primarily because of all the cash that he's been able to hoard because of our purchasing from him of oil. You know, oil is and gas is about a third of the Russian economy. We could have squelched that weeks ago, months ago, and had a big effect, but now it's going to take some time. So I don't think Putin is going to be deterred too much by all of that, unfortunately. And of course, now we are concerned that it will escalate tensions between our nations, and that they may use cyber attacks and other actions to retaliate against us. And so we could have and should have avoided it, but here we are. So I'll tell you what, I think there's going to be a bipartisan agreement on Capitol Hill. I mean, last night I was heartened to see the Democrat chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Robert Menendez. He had a very strong statement. He said responsibility to exact maximum costs on Putin, the Russian economy, and all those who enabled and facilitated this trampling of Ukraine's sovereignty is incumbent upon all of us. So I think you'll see Democrats and Republicans come together, stand together, and try to address this. But we're not in the strongest position that we could be in.
You know, Mr. Mike, you made a point a second ago. You said it takes sanctions a long time to take effect. One of the areas it's not going to take a long time to affect is America's energy, specifically gasoline prices, right? What are you looking at? It is $4 and $4.5 and even $5 a gallon. Is that just alarmist talk? What do you think?
No, I don't think it is. I mean, the price of oil is skyrocketing, of course. About 5:30 this morning when I checked, the price of crude oil was up to $100 per barrel. I think it's higher than that even now. And that obviously has a direct effect on all of us, the cost that we will pay at the pump. This will be a great disruption. And here's the thing. This is what's so frustrating to us, especially in a state like Louisiana, an oil and gas state, right? We had our domestic production turned off. President Biden killed the Keystone Pipeline. He put a moratorium on federal exploration and production, federal lands, and of course on the continental shelf off the coast of Louisiana. We should be producing our own domestic supply, right? We have it right beneath our feet. And so by having to turn to Russia, when he turned the spigot off of American production, we had to go to Russia hat in hand and ask them for oil. So that empowered Putin. We have got to reverse that. The president could act decisively right now and reverse the executive orders he did in the first 2 weeks of his administration, restart the Keystone Pipeline, take the moratorium off of federal production on federal land to get us back in the game. That's what's going to bring prices down. But we need to start that like yesterday.
Mr. Mike, I asked Senator Cassidy this very same question yesterday. A couple of days ago, the president said, he said to America, I will do whatever is necessary to mitigate, my word, not his, to mitigate America's pain at the pumps. My question to Dr. Bill was, is the president just looking America in the eye and lying?
I think he's reading a speech that some consultant wrote for him. That's what people want to hear. But, of course, his actions have been exactly the opposite. I mean, again, it's the Biden administration's energy policy that helped create the mess that we are facing now. And this is a disruption of the entire world order. Putin is now empowered. China, Xi is empowered. He's watching to see what happens. We're concerned he may make a move on Taiwan. You have Iran wanting to get nuclear weapons now. I mean, this destabilizes everything, and he needs to act. He needs to do it now. People say, why does this matter to us beyond, gas and energy prices? Listen, you have to remember Ukraine is a significant producer of wheat and corn, for example. I mean, it's a nation larger than the size of the state of Texas. That's going to have an impact on the global food market. It's ultimately going to impact us here. We have Ukraine is the leading supplier of neon gas for our growing semiconductor industry here in the U.S. That's going to be cut off. That's going to drive up costs for everyone. So, this is a problem from an economic standpoint, from a national security standpoint. Now you're going to have all these rogue nations looking around saying, hey, maybe we should have a military incursion on our neighboring country. Who's going to stop us, right? We cannot afford to get engaged in boots-on-the-ground conflicts around the globe. And that's why you have to show strength from here. You have to show it consistently, early and often, and we're acting a little too late now, but we must pick up the slack.
Mr. Mike, you mentioned sanctions. Back to sanctions for just a couple of seconds. From a strategic point of view, there has to be a great deal of concern that any sanctions imposed on the Russians by the USA or by NATO countries in Europe will further strengthen the alliance between Russia and China. You sort of alluded to that a couple of seconds ago.
Well, they're acting in unison. You saw the two leaders of those nations raise their arms together in triumph over the Olympics in China. This is a real problem, and it's one that was completely foreseeable. We've been concerned about this for a long time. It was alluded to last night by a couple of Armed Services Committee members that I talked to, that there's a real concern now that there may be three nations uniting formally, including Iran. Imagine that triumvirate there. This is a problem, and we are the last great superpower on the earth. We need to act like it. We need to project strength. We need to encourage our European allies and NATO and all the rest, everyone who looks to us for leadership. Because if our leadership is waning, then it endangers people and endangers freedom all around the world.
Respond or not, I heard somebody say last night, they said, if this guy, meaning Biden, if he could do all this in just 1 year, and then they rolled their eyes and said, good Lord, 3 years to go. Want to respond to that at all?
Well, it's a frightening prospect, and that's why I think these facts make it obvious. I think there'll be an outcry from both sides of the aisle now, finally, that the president needs to reverse course on his foreign policy, on his energy policy, and all these other areas that have been such gigantic missteps for the country. We see the effects of this. Elections have consequences. Everybody knows that. These are very dangerous ones, and it's time for the president to step up and lead, and we'll be calling on him to do that aggressively.
Congressman Mike Johnson, a pleasure as always. Mr. Mike, thank you for getting with us on such short notice.